you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you are lucky enough to be doing it to. I'm doing it today with my good mate Bushka Jr. Say hello to the people.
Hello.
He's on a 5-day holiday. He's got 5 days off school over the long weekend. I have 4, which is very, very exciting, but it's the only opportunity I've really got to do a video is right now, and I'm on childcare duty, so it's me and him doing the business. We're going to be looking at the FV4202 today, guys. I might ramble a bit on this tank. It represents a really interesting viewpoint with wargaming and what the hell they're doing. I'm going to look at the good, the bad, and the advanced stuff, how you should be really thinking about driving this tank. Now, it's got a few things going for it. It's got some controversial bits, HESH for instance, but it's got some things going for it, as in the gun handling is superb. You'll see that throughout this game. Stick auto aim on when you're doing shots without the sniper mode, and you will hit an awful lot of stuff. It's 0.32 dispersion, 268mm a pen, which is right up there. The best is the E50M at Tier X in the mediums with 270. The worst, I believe, is about 254 for the STB1. And the Russians clock in around 264. Now, you'll see there, the gun is fantastic. You're not going to have any arguments with the weapon itself. It's got excellent gun depression. It's got excellent penetration. It's got fairly solid damage per minute. It's right around the STB1, slightly more than that. The M48, slightly more than that. And it's also got HESH, which means that in a pinch, you can really up your damage when you get the opportunity. So that's something you want to be utilizing, and that means that you're going to have... Yes, its armor is very bad. Thank you very much for pointing that out and whispering behind the microphone there, just in case no one could hear that. Its armor's crap. Rather, its turret armor is crap. And you're going to see those 2 bounces there are off the upper glacis. The upper glacis is one of the sharpest, most tough to penetrate parts of any tank running who's a medium. Not so your lower glacis, not so your turret. Main gun is damaged. Do you know why the main gun is damaged? Because they are shooting at my turret. This is going to be a rant. Give me 30 seconds. Wargaming is addicted to realism at times. They won't change things because they're not how they were on the tank. So we end up in a situation where you have tanks like the T62A or the Object 140 or the T54 that have these heavy tank armor profiles on their turrets. They're nearly impenetrable unless you have really, really good luck, or you're very, very good at aiming, or you have enough penetration firing premium ammunition to actually get through them. Now, that leaves you in a situation where you can quite often be in a brawl with a 62A and you can't really penetrate him effectively anywhere but on his upper or lower glacis, or on his tracks, or on his side, and the Object 140 goes for the same boat, and they will simply just turn on auto aim, and like a 54 as well, they will turn on auto aim and pump your turret. And because you have HESH, you don't have the penetration values to just go to heat and knock them out. So you're in a real negative situation. It's one of the big reasons why this tank was gotten rid of on the PC version and replaced with the Action X Centurion, which hopefully will happen in Blitz as well. Because as much as I love this tank, and I think it is excellent, it's a lot easier, even in a Tier X match I find, to drive a Centurion 7 Mark 1 and just go hull down with a very reliable gun mantlet. You have no gun mantlet. Your gun will constantly get damaged, and you'll be repairing that module because every man and his dog will fire directly at it as you have no gun mantlet. However, back to what we have in front of us. I still enjoy driving the tank tremendously, and one of the main reasons I enjoy that is high explosive squash head, the ammunition we have here. This poor Object 140 has copped a flogging, and you've seen the accuracy of the gun. Once you turn on that auto aim, it will do the job for you pretty much. It's fast enough, it's got good shell velocity, and it's got good penetration values on its standard ammunition. Now, you have over 100mm of pen on your cheap HESH. That's your high explosive squash head. So you can actually pen a lot of tanks using cheap HESH. You can see I'm carrying 18 of them there. and you can pen an awful lot of tanks using the 210mm of penetration on your premium HESH. That means that you have the ability to burst damage for large amounts, as you can see there. Plenty of damage going on. Now, you've got the gun depression as well. So in situations like this, where you can sneak across the top, and you can use that gun depression and just have your upper glacis showing a little bit, you'll be fine. But as soon as they poke a shot at you, you've got to really be careful, because they will go straight through your turret, as this E100 does very, very soon. For all that though, I find that I have so many 4K games in this tank simply because of the HESH factor. When you get used to HESH and used to its ability to penetrate especially lower tier tanks, even frontally, you will make an absolute killing. And one of the keys to it as well is that you'll set a lot of tanks on fire. You'll see it goes straight through my gun mantlet there. I don't think that was a premium round either. Now, the reason you set a lot of tanks on fire is because you're basically firing a high explosive round, and you are firing it through their weak points, which for German tanks, for example, is your lower glacis. On American tanks, you'll fire through the back, and Russian tanks, and a lot of those tanks have their engines or their transmissions, etc., at the rear or the front of the tank. There's very few mounted in the middle of the tank, and what that means is you will do a lot of extra damage firing into the lower glacis of German tanks or the rear of Russian tanks. And you're going to see some examples of that. I think the KV4 is mid-mounted. I've set them on fire quite a few times, firing in the middle from the side. But look, I digress. If you fire HESH, things are going to catch a light, and that's a good thing. The gun depression is obviously excellent. You want to keep driving this tank in situations where you can reset your camo, much like a Leopard, which is surprising because you don't have the speed of a Leopard, but you have an excellent gun and you have a very weak armor profile on the stuff that they will actually fire at. And because of that, you do want to drive this to a large degree like a Leopard. You want to be very, very cautious of where everything is on the battlefield, because you can take high explosive shots through the front of your turret, which is a little bit intimidating when you're fighting some of those big TDs. But you can see how quickly it aims and it snapshots. You've got a 2.1 second aim time, which is not amazing. I mean, sub 2 is pretty good, but it's quick enough with that gun handling and the dispersion that you won't have any problems whatsoever being successful with it. Now we're going to have a look at one more game here, and I can't emphasize enough for you how when I play this tank, I ammo switch an awful lot. You have to get very, very proficient at switching ammunition types, and you'll get it down to a fine art to the point where you'll switch to premium HESH and cheap HESH on occasion. Now, if you're lazy like me at times, you'll just switch to premium HESH. Sometimes I stop myself, and I know when I can pen something, I'll actually switch to cheap HESH. And I'm doing that more these days because it costs a lot of money to drive a Tier X medium. And firing high explosive is a great way to save cash. Now, we're going to get a good shot in this 62A with the gun depression. Look for spots like this. Right here, where you can reverse quickly, and before he gets a chance to get the shot in, you're gone. Now we're going to get hammered here as we go past, and you're going to see another example. There's an IS-7 we're trying to pull back there, but get behind the dune, and then we're going to move up and be aggressive on an M103. What I really want to do, and what I play this tank for, is butt shots. You want as many butt shots as possible. You want to be putting fire into the rear of enemy tanks as often as possible, because what happens is a shot to the rear of an enemy tank can be worth up to 500 damage straight up. You've got 350 alpha on your standard shots on your APCR. You get a lot more damage firing HESH than you do firing APCR, and you'll see what I'm talking about here. There you go. IS-7, clear as day. We've set him on fire because we've hit the engine block. Very, very easy to set them on fire. We're shooting him for 400, 440 every shot. There's a 414. Very easy rolls. That's just lazy. He's dead anyway. We tracked him. You'll always track when you fire into the side of these kind of tanks. And we switch back to APCR for the side shot there. Now we're going around here, and you're going to note how good this gun can be when it's given its head. Top, very, very top of an Object 140, no problems whatsoever. Now this T44, we will switch up to cheap HESH. Now we're down to 17 rounds of that. We've already shot one into the back of that IS-3, and that is no problems penning there at all for 400 roll again. Do you see what I'm saying? I end up with just a shade under 5,000 damage in this match in just over 3 minutes, and most of that's not firing. If I was rolling straight APCR, none of that would have happened. We would have been more around 3,000. So we increased our damage per minute dramatically, firing a different kind of ammunition. So it's not an easy tank, and it's certainly not something that I would say would be for everyone. But if you are good at ammo switching and you become proficient at that, and you start realizing who has weaker armor profiles and where you can fire those things, then you'll become a lot better at the tank itself. So I hope that clears up a few little problems that you might have with this tank and how to minimize them. You really need to be paying attention at all times, much like when you're driving a Leo 1, and not just getting smashed from the corners, because you will get absolutely drilled in this tank if you let people take free shots at your turret. Likewise, if you can find hills where you can just edge out and show just that upper glacis, you'll bounce a lot more, and you can use that to draw shots. And I didn't have any good video of it, which is unfortunate. But much like an Object 140 or a T62A does, and I'll be doing that hopefully in the Object 140 video that's coming up soon, you can roll forward, draw shots with the bounce on that very, very steep upper glacis, and then pop out when you're safe and they've fired a round, and put one into them using the very good gun handling and gun depression. I like the tank a lot, but I still think that it has such a glaring weakness that wargaming won't fix. If you put a gun mantlet on this tank, it would make it an absolute showstopper. And I don't understand why we can't just put a gun mantlet on the tank, because I honestly don't feel like everything is realistic with the Russian mediums. Do you? I mean, please. I mean, it's just insane. Still, you got to drive them because it's a competitive game, and if you want to do well, you need to learn how to drive those Russian meds. And the other thing is, there is a tank that has that going for it. That's the STB1. It's got about the same damage per minute, like maybe 1 or 2% less. It's got a turret that will bounce shots, and it's got a gun that does the business. It has heat. It doesn't have HESH. I'd love it to have HESH, actually. I think that would be fantastic, but that's a British-only thing. And the STB1 is one of my favourite mediums at the moment. You might have seen in the recent live stream, I drove it with Snake, and I think we won 8 or 9 in a row in an STB1 62A platoon. And it can do the business. It can go hull down. It's got the gun depression to do it. It's got just enough mobility to get out of trouble. And even though the gun handling is not a patch on the FV4202, because you can hull down, you really get the chance to take the time and let the reticle settle and be successful with it. You better get good at snapshots in the FV4202, because if you're not, and you give people, especially T54s and such, who just turn on the auto aim and load a load of heat in there, you are going to struggle. And that's not the fault of T54 drivers, and it's not the fault of T62A or Object 140 drivers or anyone like that. Because if you're driving a tank, you drive it to its limitations and its abilities, or you don't drive it at all. And you don't blame the other side for taking advantage of game mechanics. It's not up to us to really, say, well, that's not fair, I'm not playing the game anymore. We either get on with life or we don't do it. And the FV4202 has enough tools to be successful at Tier X. Just for the love of all that is holy, do not brawl with this tank with anyone that has a clue. A T62A or an STB or an E50M will simply slot your turret time and time and time and time again. Anyone can pen you through the turret. Anyone you face has the ability to pen this through the turret, so play it accordingly. Do not go hull down wide open, or you will pay the piper a merry tune. Anyway, I've been Bushka on Blitz. You've been lovely. Thank you very much for sticking with me. The channel just hit 9,000 subs, which is insane. I can't believe it. We're nearly at 10,000. We're only 1,000 away. It seems like I celebrated when we hit 500. I never thought we'd get to 1,000. 9,000 is nuts. And I want to thank the guys and girls on Patreon particularly who sponsor the channel, all of those who have donated to the channel, and all of those who sub and make the comments section an interesting thing. The streams are getting better and more fun, I think. Everything's happening very, very fast, but there's some official wargaming stuff coming up as well, which I think you're going to love. Anyway, boys and girls, I'm Bushka on Blitz. Onwards and upwards, and stay safe on the battlefield.